Hello and welcome to a new video. It's been a while, or at least it feels like it's been a while for me anyway. I've kind of been on, I don't want to say a hiatus, but I've certainly felt like I've been on a hiatus. I've been very stressed and busy recently, and there's just been a lot going on, obviously, in the world at large, and that has just made things at work very stressful indeed. And just in general, I don't know, I've been busy. And I can't remember when I last posted the video, but I think it was a while. It feels like months at this point, so I almost feel like I'm reintroducing myself to you guys. I know that's not the case. But how is everyone? Yeah, certainly some trying times right now. But I decided there's a lot that I want to talk about. There's a lot of videos that I want to make. I was just going through my notebook, and yeah, just the kind of videos to film lists are getting very long. These aren't just ideas of videos that I could do. These are ideas of videos I think I need to do, based on things I've watched, things I'd like to talk about, things like that. And I've moved to this new setup for now because, well, logistics, and also because this is very late that I'm recording this. So I'm going to try and be as quiet as I can, if you can still hear me. Yeah, so Connie's asleep. And it's late. It's just, again, I get really sidetracked by things, and yeah, and I'm going to leave this as is. I'm not going to try and edit this down because I feel like I haven't done a video in ages. It's been so long, even though we just did the marathon. We just did this year's 2020 Year 9 24-hour movie marathon. So I've been sat here talking about films for 3 days straight, not 2 weeks ago, but again, it feels like months ago. Time is flying and a lot of stuff is going on. But anyway, this video, the one that you clicked on, I'm sorry for the preamble, as I get into this proper here, is going to be my top 20 films that I watched for the first time in 2019. So these aren't 2019 releases. These are the top 20 films I saw in 2019 for the first time that were released pre-2019. So I've done this a few times over the years. I think I started in 2015, which was like a top 50 films I'd seen for the first time. And I think I only watched about 54 brand new films to me that weren't released in 2019 in 2019. Is that making sense? Get it? Got it? Good. Okay, so I enjoyed doing this, and hey, we're like halfway through March. We're near the end of March, and I still haven't done my top 20 films of 2019, the proper one, which I know some people might be waiting for, maybe not, I don't know. I did that hour-long RazorwireReviews Film Awards video, which is kind of like an alternate kind of the things I thought were the best of 2019. I really enjoyed doing that, and so if you like that, then good. I'm glad if you did. If you didn't, oh well. But I will be doing my top 20 films of 2019. And me and Connie will be doing our dual lists, kind of reacting to each other's top 10 lists, which was a lot of fun last year when we did that for 2018. Anyway, so these are the top 20 films I saw for the first time in 2019, and these are always going to be colored by where I'm moving in a year as far as going back to older films. So I think in 2015, I had a lot of silent films on that list. 2014 was my big year of really digging into silent films. And 2019 was my Asian cinema season 2. So this is predominantly colored by lots of Asian movies and quite a few Jackie Chan releases. So again, these are the favorite ones for me. And I want to give a few honorable mentions. I'll leave that one in for free, of films that didn't quite make the list. And why is that? Oh, okay, I was confusing two films there on my list. I have like a letterboxed screenshot thing at the moment, so I can easily look at the list that I have. So The Golem was an interesting one, Jackie Chan's Dragon Fist, Mamoru Hosoda's Summer Wars, Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal, Lost Highway by David Lynch, Fist of Fury, the Bruce Lee movie, Armor of God, another Jackie Chan, Spring in a Small Town, an old Chinese movie, another Jackie Chan film, Who Am I?, While We're Young, a Noah Baumbach film, Look Back in Anger. That's not Don't Look Back in Anger, it's Look Back in Anger, which is a Richard Burton British film from the 50s, I think. That was actually the first film I watched in this house when we moved in last July. Taika Waititi's Boy, which I think is maybe his debut feature film, which was wonderful, and Jackie Chan's Chinese Zodiac, which I believe is Armor of God 3. Love that film. But anyway, let's get into the top 20 list. At number 20, we have another Noah Baumbach film, The Squid and the Whale. I think it's from 2004. Really interesting film. It's a family drama about a separation of a married couple and their teenage sons and how they deal with it. So Jeff Daniels and I forget the actress's name. She's great, but yeah. Anyway, I can't remember her name, so I can't really expand upon that point. But Jeff Daniels is the father. Jesse Eisenberg is the eldest son, and I believe it's Kevin Kline and Phoebe Cates' son playing the younger son. And it was kind of one of those weird things where you have an actor who was very young when they made this film, and then they never did anything else. And you'd think, coming from actor parents, that he would continue that career, but he chose not to. And gives a very memorable performance in that film. But it's an interesting, kind of quirky, offbeat humor. Feels in the vein of Wes Anderson in terms of some of the timing of the humor and the editing of the humor as well, which isn't a surprise given the fact that Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach have collaborated. I think I've seen Noah Baumbach's name in like producing or executive producing on some of Wes Anderson's films or something to that degree. I'm not entirely sure, but I know they have some sort of friendship or working relationship, so it's not too surprising that it feels of that ilk. But The Squid and the Whale, I really enjoyed. Number 19 is Wheels on Meals, a Jackie Chan film with Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung. Phenomenal final fight sequence between Jackie Chan and Benny the Jet. And any Asian film that I mention in this list will have its own separate review already up on my channel. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts, you can do so. I had to get together with friends recently, and I brought some movies, and we didn't watch Wheels on Meals, but I did put on the fight scene between Jackie Chan and Benny the Jet because it's just one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen. It's incredible, worth the price of admission alone. It's a really fun movie. Number 18 is Jackie Chan's Rumble in the Bronx, which I believe was his first major kind of success in America as far as an American movie. Isn't it? Well, I'm not sure if it was technically an American movie. It's set in America. I think it is still technically a Chinese movie I don't know. But either way, it was like kind of one of those breaking out movies for him in the West. He was certainly known before then, and he tried to crack into America before that with Battle Creek Brawl in 1980, but I believe this was the early 90s. It's super fun, and I forget another. See, I wish I could have a better memory retaining these things, but is it Anita Mui? I think maybe. I might be butchering that, I might be getting it wrong, but she plays his stepmother in Legend of Drunken Master / Drunken Master 2. She also appears in Rumble in the Bronx, and she's brilliant. She's so much fun, and the movie's great, and there's some really fun action sequences. Really enjoyed Rumble in the Bronx. Number 17, surprise, surprise, is another Jackie Chan film, Project A. So me and Connie watched Project A Part 2 for the Epic Film Challenge 2 a few years ago, and we really, really enjoyed it, but I'd never seen the first one, so Eureka came out with the Blu-ray box set, and so we watched the first one, Project A. Just incredible. I mean, the period kind of production design is great, but the action scenes alongside it are just incredible. This is another one with Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung, so you got, I guess, they call them the Three Dragons, but those three guys together in a movie, you're just getting magic when it comes to not just the fight scenes, but kind of the humor and the comedic timing as well. Just great stuff. Number 16 is Bad Day at Black Rock, which is a film I can't even tell you anything about in terms of who starred in it, who directed it. Those pieces have left my mind now. This was another one of the first films I watched when I moved into this house last year, but it was a film from the book, 1,000 Movies You Must See Before You Die, and I really enjoyed this one. It's about a guy who comes into this small town in the desert in America and very quickly realizes there's something not quite right, and something has happened here in this town that no one in the town wants to talk about. I think he's even investigating it, and he's got like one arm, so like the one-armed man comes into town and everyone's suspicious of him, and it's just a really great kind of mystery that unfolds. Really, really good film. Number 15 is The Third Murder. This is a Hirokazu Koreeda film. Really interesting courtroom drama, which isn't. I mean, it's kind of advertised as a courtroom drama, but there isn't much courtroom stuff going on in it, really. It's more about about a murder that takes place and the events surrounding it. I loved the way this one unfolded, and there's some really great performances in it too. Number 14 is M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. I'd never seen this before. This was just before Glass came out at the beginning of 2019, so I thought I'd go back and watch the first film in that now trilogy. Really, really enjoyed it. The way that it was looking at the comic book idea of superheroes and kind of portraying it in a much different way than we were used to. Although at the time when Unbreakable came out, the comic book superhero movie wasn't really anywhere near the staple of blockbuster cinema as it is now, which makes it even more interesting. But it's a really interesting exploration. Bruce Willis is great in it. Samuel L. Jackson gives a very memorable performance in that film. I really enjoyed it. It was one that I'd always been aware of, but after 20 years, finally got around to seeing it. Number 13, as part of my I feel like 2019, I really dug into David Lynch a lot deeper. And as part of that was Wild at Heart. Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, and Laura Dern's mother. What's her name? Diane Ladd, I think. Great cast, and there's like lots of little great supporting parts. Really happy with my review I did of that film as well. So that's another film that I've done a review of. If you want to go check that out. But Wild at Heart it's literally a film that's wild at heart. There's a lot going on there. Nicolas Cage is very interesting. Laura Dern is very committed, and they have a very symbiotic relationship, and I believe the performance to me is very symbiotic as well. One wouldn't work without the other. They really commit to it. It's an interesting, dark and bright road movie. Really, really interesting. I really enjoyed that one a lot. Number 12 is another Jackie Chan film, The Foreigner. Also starring Pierce Brosnan. Jackie Chan plays a guy whose daughter is killed in an explosion at the beginning of the movie, and basically goes on a revenge vendetta against the people responsible. And it's an intense film. It's a very recent film, so you don't see too much Jackie Chan action, but man, can he fucking act if he puts, if he's got the right material, the right emotional material. That guy can act his ass off, and I fucking loved this film. It was really, really great. Surprised me quite a bit. Number 11, another Jackie Chan film, Operation Condor. So is this Armor of God, Operation God? Is this the one? Oh, I'm not sure which one this is. See, that's interesting, because I'm just looking at the posters. No, it must be, okay, it's the one. Yeah, okay, so this is Armor of God 2, Operation Condor. Connie didn't like this one very much, but I loved it. Like, it's the one, if you've seen Jackie Chan films, it's the one with the big fan at the end, the huge fan and kind of the flying stunts. But I loved the adventure of it. It was just so enjoyable. I loved the female counterparts that he had in the film, and the humor of it was fun to me. Again, the adventure, the locations, and then the fight scenes, it just all seemed to click together into really just super fun, entertaining movie. So into the top 10 now, we have at number 10, another Hirokazu Koreeda film, Nobody Knows. This is a drama about a group of siblings, young siblings. I think there's 4 of them or 3 of them, and they're left at home by their mother to fend for themselves while she goes off to work. And, this happens a lot, and eventually she doesn't return. And so we follow them during this very kind of drawn out, hot, sweaty summer where their resources start to wear thin and things get a little dire and desperate. And it's a really involving film. It's a very quiet drama, and the performances of these kids are very naturalistic. It really draws you in. And I thought it was a great film that I had a lot of thoughts about, which you can see in the review that me and Connie did. At number 9, we have another Japanese film. This is directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, no relation to the great Akira Kurosawa, and it is Cure, which is a kind of horror, kind of thriller, kind of detective movie with a brilliant lead performance from the man who plays a detective who is looking into this killer, and the killer is so interesting, and there's some really unsettling, quietly drawn out scenes that they have you kind of literally leaning forward a little bit. They say edge of your seat, but this is like you kind of leaning forward a bit, like, and then you're leaning back, like, what is going to happen? Sound design was really interesting in the last third of that movie, but yeah, Cure was something that just really grabbed me, and stuck with me for quite a while afterwards. Number 8 is, I believe, yes, the debut film from director Steven Soderbergh, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Watch this for the Epic Film Challenge too. That is a really I'm trying to think of other ways to say gripping and involving, but I mean now we're getting into the top 10. That's kind of the movies that are really, grabbing me and involving me. But it's a really gripping movie about a guy who videotapes women talking about their sexual history, basically. And the guy is played by James Spader, but Andy McDowell plays a woman who is kind of drawn into this person that James Spader plays, and her husband Peter Gallagher is kind of cheating on her with her sister. There's a bit of a, not even a love triangle or even quadrant, but there's like these four characters get kind of tied together through everything that's going on, and it's a very well constructed script, I think. But it's really just lots of scenes where people are just talking, and you kind of again are leaning forward a little bit, not in the way that you would in Cure, where it's like about murder and stuff, but it almost could be in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, because the things that they're talking about are very intense and personal and deep. And yeah, I loved the film. I was really taken with it. And again, you can see my more expanded thoughts, in which I probably had more to say because I'd just seen it, in the separate review that I made for it. Number 7, we have 56 Up. This is the previous installment in the long-running Up series of documentaries, primarily directed by Michael Apted. Started in the 60s as a documentary on TV called 7 Up, which follows a group of 7-year-old kids from varying class backgrounds in Britain, and basically just interviewing them about their outlook on life. And they caught up with those kids every 7 years for the next 50 plus years. The most recent installment came out in 2019 with 63 Up, as did a Blu-ray set chronicling the entire series, which I bought, and 56 Up was the only one I hadn't seen in its entirety. Me and Connie got into those films in 2014, and we watched the first one, the second one, the third one. It was all on Netflix at the time. By the time we got to 56 Up, it was just like we'd seen so much of these people's lives, and every new installment features lots of flashbacks to the previous installment. So it was just really getting... these films are not quite designed for binge watching, but they are so great that I did actually end up going back and watching most of them again after I got the Blu-ray set. But 56 Up was the one I hadn't seen fully. It was the last one, and I just loved it. I mean, I love these people. I love this story. It's one of the greatest achievements of film, I think. It's just such an ordinary and yet powerful thing. Number 6 is Us and Them, which is a Netflix movie that was released in 2018, and it's a staggering romantic drama. It's about these two characters, and we follow them on New Year's Eve, and then we follow them on another New Year's Eve in the future, after they've been separated for a long period. So you kind of get to see like the beginning of a relationship, and then what happens when you see that person after many years, given the emotional baggage that you have together, that you've shared all this intimate stuff, and now you're faced with them again, and they're put in a situation where they can't really escape each other. I mean, they could if they wanted to, but I guess part of the drama is that they kind of are using the situation to their advantage, where they're like, okay, I guess we'll just share a hotel then, and then we'll maybe talk about stuff or not talk about stuff. And, it switches back and forth between the two timelines, and it's about love, it's about loss, and it's heartbreaking, and it's kind of beautiful and really, really great. It's on Netflix, Us and Them, a Chinese movie. I would highly recommend it. Getting into the top 5 now, and these are 5 incredible films. These are what I would call all pretty much 5-star movies. Number 5, we have I'll leave that one in for free too. See, I'm kind of like struggling for my breath because I'm trying to keep my voice down just a little bit, but also I'm not quite used to... It feels like I'm not used to making videos anymore and using my voice in this kind of way. Number 5 is Vagabond, directed by Agnes Varda, one of my all-time favorite directors. She passed away in 2019, and I felt like going to see this in my local cinema down on the pier was kind of meant to be. She'd just passed away a few months previous, and it's like, okay, let's go see one of her most acclaimed films in a cinema. And it was an incredible cinema experience. There wasn't really many people in there, but everyone was like laughing at the right moments, and I could feel everyone really got something out of the movie. And it's about a woman who wanders around the country in France, and we slowly see her kind of dissolve, and kind of get more desperate. I mean, the film opens with her death. Someone finds her body in a field. So now we tell the story of how she got there. Very kind of Grave of the Fireflies-esque. But, in that sense, there's this crushing inevitability of her death. And I've also done an in-depth review on this film as well. So most of these I've talked about before, but if you wanted more thoughts on that, definitely check that out. I was really happy with the review that I did for this film. But the actress who played her, I forget her name, Sandrine Bonner, I believe. But the actress who plays the main character is incredible. She was very young when she made this film, but she leaves such an impression. It's such a vibrant and human performance, and there's so many great, beautiful little moments and interactions and interplays between the characters. And some of the people in this movie were not really professional actors, so there's a real bouncy kind of naturalism to some of those scenes. There's a particular moment where she is pretending to be a maid for a very old woman, and they end up getting drunk together. And it's maybe one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen. It's just so funny, and I don't know, it's brimming with life at times, but it's also brimming with death at other times. And so it's really interesting, but I loved Vagabond. Number 4 is Mulholland Drive by David Lynch. If I'd made this list at the time I saw Mulholland Drive, it would be a lot lower, but I keep thinking about this film, and it stuck with me for weeks. The soundtrack, certain moments were just like etched into my brain, that kind of part of your kind of daydreaming brain that you kind of subconsciously go to with that thing. I just kept thinking about this film over and over again. And so I feel like with repeat viewings, this might become an all-time favorite. There's something about it, the music, the style, the performances. It has, I think, one of the most sensual and beautiful sex scenes I've ever seen. And there aren't many sex scenes that I think are sensually done. But that's just one facet of it. There's so much to Mulholland Drive to unpack, as they say these days. But I think the beauty in it is in not unpacking it and leaving it kind of in that box, so to speak. But I can't wait to revisit it. I feel like the timing needs to be right. I don't want to overdo it and watch it over and over again, but it's going to be one of those things that constantly rewards. And I don't know, David Lynch just has a certain something, and this movie has most of that, I think. So yeah, I loved it. Number 3 is Akira, which I thought I'd seen many years ago, and in revisiting this for the Epic Film Challenge too. So again, I have done a review on this. I found that no, I hadn't seen all of this, 9 years ago. I'd seen half of it and kind of assumed that I'd finished the rest, which was awful. But, seeing it now properly from start to finish, it is an absolutely insane film, animated film from Japan, and it has like 5 different climaxes. There are like 5 different scenes in this film that could be like an action set piece to end, a single movie, and it has like 4 or 5 of them, and it never feels like, it feels like this constant onslaught of just epicness. And I really was drawn into the characters amidst all the grandeur of these big explosions and crazy things going on. It just keeps escalating and escalating. The visuals are wild. The storytelling is like, the storytelling to me feels like the bikes that they ride, so not carelessly, but like the way the bikes in the film kind of just zip through the city and they're swinging around corners. That's what the storytelling feels like. You're being taken on a ride, and there's not much you can do to stop and look around because we're going. It's an incredible film. I absolutely loved Akira, and it has cult status. Not even cult status. I think it's one of the more popular anime films, and so even if you haven't even seen an anime film, you've probably heard of Akira or seen some of the iconography associated with it, particularly that bike. And number 2 is another animated film. In fact, I can say the top 3 films are all Japanese. At number 2, we have an animated film from Satoshi Kon, and it is Tokyo Godfathers. This was the first film I watched for Asian Cinema Season 2. No, that's a complete lie. This is difficult. I shouldn't even go into this because no one cares, and it's a useless piece of information. But I was filming videos for Asian Cinema Season 2 for like a year straight. And then once the project started, I was also watching films. So this was the first one I watched once the project had started. So I was like, okay, let's kick this off with watching another film. And it was my favorite one of the whole thing. And it is, Tokyo Godfathers, as I just said. Amazing film. The story is so good, and I bought this film completely blind based on the fact that I'd seen another Satoshi Kon film, which is Perfect Blue, an amazing film that was high on my list of first watches for 2018, I think, or maybe it was 2017. But Perfect Blue was amazing. I wanted to see more from this director. Tokyo Godfathers in, don't care what it's about. Threw it on, and I assumed it would be like a mob, mafia, yakuza movie. Nope. It is about three homeless men who find this young baby, this young child. I think it's set on New Year's Eve or maybe Christmas Eve. It's winter, it's cold. They got this child, and they're trying to take it back and find its parents. And it's this wild trip across the city. I mean, it's a 90-minute movie. There's so much packed into it, and there's so much heart and humor and heartbreak, and it just has a little bit of everything. I fucking love Tokyo Godfathers. I think it's a masterpiece. It's the kind of film where once you're finished watching it, you're just like, you're just so excited about films. And those tend to be the best ones, I think, is when you're just so excited about it. It reinvigorates your love of movies when you see something that good, and that feeling is pretty rare. So, yeah, I loved Tokyo Godfathers. It was my number 2, so it wasn't quite the number 1 first watch of 2019, but the number 1 spot is another Japanese movie directed by Hirokazu Koreeda, Afterlife from 1998, I believe. Another one that we did a review for, me and Connie, and I think Connie even almost teared up in that video talking about it, because it becomes an unexpectedly emotionally stirring movie. Again, I'll leave that in for free, but you're not quite expecting it to have the punch that it has towards the end, because it's a very slow burn movie that's all about character with a unique concept. So Afterlife, if you haven't seen it, if you're not aware, and cheap plug, my friend Daisuke Beppu just posted like a 3-hour live discussion of that film on his YouTube channel. So you go check that out. I'm sure he has a lot more insight to that film than I do, especially considering he talked about it for 3 hours long. But the concept alone really intrigued me. It's set in this building where a group of people enter, and they are recently deceased. And instead of being given the handbook for the recently deceased, they're given a group of counselors who are going to talk to them, sit down with them, interview them, ask them about their lives, and kind of ask them, what is the one memory that you would like to take with you beyond? We have a week here at this facility. We're going to talk to you about your life. You can have a few days, and then we want you to decide on one memory from your life that you want to keep forever. And we're going to then make a movie of that memory. And at the end of the week, we're all going to sit down, we're going to watch the movies, and then you will go on and you will live with that memory. And it's just incredible. It's so incredible. It's, again, simple, slow, takes its time, and the way that it deals with the movies being made is so fun. But there's, again, a real emotional gut punch towards the end when you realize what they've picked, and there are some people who don't pick. I mean, it goes into all these different eventualities that you could imagine in this situation if it was real. It's treated with such a level of realism that makes it so much more interesting. This isn't high concept. There's no white walls and kind of, digital panels and stuff. It's not futuristic or even, clouds and kind of, harps. There's no kind of traditional heaven-like iconography here. It's just a building. It's just a warehouse building. It's completely realistic, and that to me feels more like what a vision or a version of heaven could be. Not that this is heaven. I guess this is like the way station before they get to what heaven might be. And then again, it doesn't even seem to suggest that there is a heaven, just that there is something beyond. But before we get there, we're given this opportunity to kind of capture an essence, a feeling of something in our lives that we would love to hang on to forever, and then take it on with us. And just the way that it is just people in the building. I mean, for one thing, obviously it would be a lot cheaper to make as a movie, but I don't think that harms it whatsoever. It grounds it in a way that just makes you believe in everything so much more. The first half is made up of a lot of these kind of interviews with the people. And, they're talking about their lives, and you get wrapped up in it. It feels like a documentary, and there are specific cuts which make it feel like a documentary. And I believe that a lot of those interviews with the recently deceased were a mix of actors, non-actors, non-professionals, and so you do get this very kind of interesting and realistic charisma and vibe to a lot of those scenes. But then it really kind of converges towards the end, where it's really focused on giving you this, I think, satisfying and emotional conclusion to the story. I think it is an absolute masterpiece. I think after seeing a lot of Koreeda's films, I think it's probably his best film. It's up there with Still Walking, and also with, I would say, like Father Like Son is a big one, but also Shoplifters as well, which I recently revisited, and I was much more taken with that film the second time around. But yeah, I would say that Afterlife is probably, for me, I haven't seen all of his films, but I've seen a lot of them. I would say Afterlife is probably his best. Not my favorite. My favorite is still Our Little Sister, which I think is a wonderful film. But that's a personal preference. The way that film makes me feel is kind of the most special to me. But I think Afterlife, it just has that concept to it that is so brilliantly executed. I think it's a must-watch film. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen any of Koreeda's films, I highly recommend getting the BFI box set, which is called Of Flesh and Blood, I believe. I don't know how much it is now on Amazon, if it's even available. It should be, I hope, fingers crossed. But it has a number of great films in it. Nobody Knows, for one, and also Still Walking. But this one, worth the price of admission alone. If you're interested in getting into Japanese cinema, great place to start. Or if you've seen Koreeda's films, you've never seen Afterlife, jump on that box set. I haven't been paid by the BFI to say this. It's a must-own box set, but the film itself is just, it's great. And I almost kind of don't like overhyping a film like this in case it doesn't live up to everyone's expectations, because I don't think that it's a film that you watch and instantly go, wow. But it's, the way that it works under your skin. I don't know, I just loved it. I came away from that film just, again, feeling reinvigorated with my love of cinema. I think that's probably the best compliment you can pay any film. So that's been my top 20 first watches of 2019. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause